I feel a little bit like Paul Harvey or Monty Python. After the first presentation, I'm now going to the other side of the story, the more physical, architectural side of the picture. What I'm going to talk about this morning very briefly is our work at the Sanford Consortium and our interface with one of the board members here early on and how that impacted some of what we've done. The Sanford Consortium is an important project because of the stem cell research that's about to go on there or is going on there, because of the efforts for Serum to make all this possible, the California Initiative for Regenerative Medicine, and because of the bravery of bringing 4 different institutions together in the hopes that commingling those brain cells and that expertise would cause something to come of it in a more timely fashion. But it also posed a challenge for us because as our project leader from the consortium, Louis Kaufman, repeatedly reminded us this needed to be a collaboratory, which was the word he used, because the only way things were going to happen with the speed with which everyone hoped was if that building allowed the researchers and caused them to feel comfortable working together. So during one of our early design sessions, our associate architect, Bob Davis, who's from San Diego, suggested that we meet with David Kirsch, who would give us some ideas about how to do that. And we met with David over coffee. It wasn't a particularly long discussion. It was meaningful for us. We'll have to ask David at a later time whether he even remembers the discussion, but it was very important to us. We talked about the factors that would enhance interaction and make it possible for the researchers to be perhaps more aware of the other researchers around them, aware of the research in the building, and start to have a cohesive influence on the entire activity in the building. And David talked to us about movement and the importance of movement through the spaces. He talked about things that brought about movement or caused movement, such as location of activities, walking through spaces, walking around spaces, leaving one space to go into an office which is elsewhere. He talked about ownership of spaces, about the difference between nesting and touchdown, just occupying a space temporarily. He talked about the importance of transparency in understanding what's going on around you. As you're moving through the space, if subconsciously you're aware that someone is working next to you, it can make them your friend over time. We talked about digital connectivity, which is an easy technical thing for us to resolve these days. And he also talked about the normal sorts of communal activities of eating, taking a break, having a conference like this in a auditorium. So what I'd like to do right now is quickly go through some images of this project, show you what's there in place. For those of you who will tour tomorrow, it's a preview. For others, it's a glimpse of the project. And then we can talk about the successes or failures of what we've done. And of course, being across the street from this 20th century icon of architecture is humbling at the very least for architects. This is a floor plan of the building, a typical floor plan. This is the 2nd floor, but it's the same as the 3rd and the 4th. These brown areas are research zones. And down the center is a service and circulation corridor, which is also linear equipment. It's full of heat and noise producing equipment. But the floor is divided into 4 what we called research neighborhoods, and those are open lab spaces. You can see from one end to the other. At the ends of the floor are conference facilities, and then in the middle, the floor is broken by break rooms. As many of you know, you can't eat or drink in labs typically because of contamination issues, so the break rooms become key opportunities for communication. We also made them 2 stories, so every one of those you can hear and see your neighbors on the floor above or below. The offices we moved to the perimeter, similar to what's done here at Salk. taking advantage of the weather. And then we also added a cafeteria and an auditorium. This is a section showing very quickly. You can start to understand how these offices are cantilevered off the exterior walkway, the two-story break rooms that allow people to communicate, and there's also another one on this side which is offset here. This is one of the open labs, lab neighborhoods. Everything in here, as Dr. Gage said, you can't take out every wall in this building. There are columns, unlike the SOC, but you can take out everything that's in this room. The researchers can do it themselves. It's all completely movable. If we were not in California, you wouldn't even need a socket wrench, but California, for seismic reasons, we do. We have very large windows allowing a lot of natural light in. You can see the transparency that we were able to provide. That's an office beyond and the ocean beyond that. This is one of the two-story break rooms. There's a variety of seating opportunities, lounge seating, stand-up seating. It's all electrified. These are the offices, which are off that balcony. And this is the fourth floor. You can see the two different types of offices. They're two different sizes. But again, the transparency, we were hoping that because you can see in and see the activity, it would encourage people to know everyone that's in the building very quickly. All the furnishings are the same, sort of Spartan, not exactly what you'd call nesting furniture, but they're all electrified. They can go up and down, modify as needed. Conference spaces, there are typical conference rooms like this on one end of the building, and then at the other end, right off the elevator, are this type of conference room, which have glass on three sides, so that as you get off the elevator, you can see everybody that's in that conference room and start to understand what they're dealing with. And every one of these has a different type of furniture in them. And then we also have spaces like this, which are nesting spaces, or not nesting, I'm sorry, touchdown spaces, for researchers who are visiting or techs who come in from outside and need a space to expand. Every one of these rooms has right-on wall surfaces so that you can write on it. They have digital cameras so that anything that's put there can be transmitted elsewhere to the building. This is the auditorium. It's 150 seats. 150 was felt to be a good number because it was intimate enough so that you could have a communication between all the people in the room. And you have windows to the outside so that it's not too hard to be there for a long discussion. This is the food service, again with a variety of different kinds of seating, open completely to the exterior. The lobby. And beyond that wood wall is a big divisible conference room, and everything in there is movable as well. These are just some shots of the outside of the building. This is the walkover from the university. We tried to identify the functions within the building from the exterior. So you're looking at lab spaces with those big windows and the break room in between, the auditorium, the main entrance, the conference rooms there on the end, the offices, and again, this is the other end of the building. So, thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at a later time. I do think that the one thing I wanted to make a point of is that as we went through this process, there are all these other issues that architects deal with, like costs and schedule and constructability and ocean breezes on the effect on the materials and stuff. But the issues that Dr. Kirsch raised with us lingered in the back of our mind and caused us to try every once in a while to twist something a little differently. And as we look back on the finished product, we think that it actually had a stronger impact on what we were doing than what we may have been conscious of at that time.
Thanks, Jeff. It's work in progress. I think we're still learning how to use the building in its most effective way, and sort of wish retrospectively that we'd taken a bunch of measures of what the scientists, biological measures, before they started to move into the building so we could monitor their activities later. We got to figure out what we have to monitor before we start doing that, I suppose.